Welcome to the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast, Episode 5. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
We've got a great podcast for you. We're going to talk about Native American atrocities,
King Phillips War,
the assimilation and destruction of Native American culture,
and John Eliot's praying towns.
We're going to talk a little bit about Native American history and present the data from our investigations at Anawan Rock in Rehoboth, Massachusetts,
where Captain Benjamin Church captured and killed Sachem Chief Anawan, marking the end of King Philip's War.
Also, we're going to present data from our investigations at an old Indian burial ground in the former praying town of Grafton, Massachusetts. And why would we do this?
Out of respect for the indigenous people of the Americas.
And also to figure out why the fuck these places are haunted. So without further ado,
let's get this mother rolling.
In the pre-Columbian era, that is before Christopher Columbus murdered, raped, and enslaved the Caribbean and southern portion of the Americas, the continent and her indigenous people had limited exposure to the widespread diseases of Europe, and therefore they had limited immunities against smallpox, bubonic plague, chickenpox, cholera, diphtheria, influenza, malaria, measles, scarlet fever, typhoid, typhus, tuberculosis, various STDs, and the common cold.
In April 1614, Captain John Smith landed at the then unfounded Ipswich, Massachusetts. Native Americans in the North Shore area were believed to have numbered in the thousands. But 20 years later, when Ipswich was settled, the Anawan people had been reduced to less than 100 natives.
It is thought that over 18 million Native Americans lived in North America alone prior to the explorers and settlers that crossed the Atlantic, bringing with them a tidal wave of disease. Between the years 1616 and 1619, the native population was reduced to just 10% of what it had once been. Puritan colonists arrived in Plymouth, Massachusetts, only to find empty and abandoned villages for them to occupy.
Although not taught in children's history classes, it is no secret that the early settlers, due to their lack of survival skills, would resort to digging up the graves of the Native Americans and even their own children to find sustenance in the exhumed flesh.
The war between the Native Americans and the colonists started in 1675 in Swansea, Massachusetts. Swansea and its surrounding areas are part of what is known today as the
Bridgewater Triangle,
an area renowned for its extraordinary paranormal activity.
Some theorize that the atrocities of King Philip's War and the theft of land is exactly why it's so haunted.
We visited and investigated an old Indian burial ground in Hassanamesset Praying Village, or what is now known as the town of Grafton, Massachusetts.
This small parcel of land contains members of John Eliot's Praying Indians, who were Nipmucks in this case, and was the first established burial ground of that settlement.
The current configuration of the cemetery, with its distinctive granite and fieldstone retaining wall, granite steps, and granite block gateposts, was created in the 1920s as a resting place for the remains that were unearthed during additional road construction on Route 122, a main road in Grafton.
The cemetery is modest to say the least, and includes a row of unmarked stones across its front and a larger stone and dedication plaque at its center.
The cemetery, however, has been a regular part of Nipmuc tribal activities and celebrations ever since.
Praying towns were developed by the Puritans of New England from 1646 to 1675, led by English missionary John Eliot, ending just prior to the start of King Philip's War.
This was an effort by the white man to convert the local Native American tribes to Christianity and American culture. This was the first attempt, but not the last, of total assimilation and destruction of the Native American lifestyle, spirituality, and traditions.
The natives in these towns went to church, had their hair cut short, and dressed in the colonists' clothing. Their safety was always at risk, as the colonists didn't necessarily trust them, and the tribes considered them traitors.
We visited and investigated an old Indian burial ground in Hassanamesset Praying Village, or what is now known as the town of Grafton, Massachusetts.
This small parcel of land contains members of John Eliot's Praying Indians, who were Nipmucks in this case, and was the first established burial ground of that settlement.
The current configuration of the cemetery, with its distinctive granite and fieldstone retaining wall, granite steps, and granite block gate posts, was created in the 1920s as a resting place for the remains that were unearthed during additional road construction on Route 122, a main road in Grafton.
The cemetery is modest to say the least, and includes a row of unmarked stones across its front and a larger stone and dedication plaque at its center.
The cemetery, however, has been a regular part of Nipmuc tribal activities and celebrations ever since.
Praying towns were developed by the Puritans of New England from 1646 to 1675, led by English missionary John Eliot, ending just prior to the start of King Phillips' War.
This was an effort by the white man to convert the local Native American tribes to Christianity and American culture. This was the first attempt, but not the last, of total assimilation and destruction of the Native American lifestyle, spirituality, and traditions.
The natives in these towns went to church, had their hair cut short, and dressed in the colonists' clothing. Their safety was always at risk, as the colonists didn't necessarily trust them, and the tribes considered them traitors.
So Kristen and I were spending a Saturday afternoon together. I think it was a Saturday, maybe a Sunday. And we're looking for something to investigate, somewhere to go, something different. We were trying to get our other investigation off our mind of the undisclosed location in the haunted Houghton Mausoleum, which you can hear about in our other podcasts. And I came across this old Indian burial ground in Grafton, Massachusetts. So we decided to take a drive out. We did find it, and it's on a busy road, Route 122. As mentioned, we parked across the street and kind of had to run across the road so we didn't get run over and get buried ourselves, right? And as mentioned previously, it's very basic in there, and we tried to capture some EVPs, which we really didn't get anything there, and did a spirit box session and placed the spirit box on the main rock that's kind of in the center of this thing.
It has a plaque on it.
Yeah, it has a dedication plaque. And you had a pink shirt on that we had bought the day before.
Right, and it was at a healing and spiritual expo at crystals and things.
Expo, and that was pretty cool. And we bought some swag and
crystals.
And
Can never have enough.
Can't have too many crystals.
But
we also met Amy Major that day.
Yes.
You had this shirt on. It's pink and it says "Believe" across it, and it's kind of the symbolic letters that look like those coexist shirts or bumper stickers that you see pretty often.
Just for confirmation, I asked if they knew what my shirt had said.
That's right. And sure as heck, they came back with the answer. And here's that clip.
You know what my shirt says? You know what my shirt says?
So you can hear there, I've looped it twice, and they say "believe." Mm-hmm. And that was pretty mind-blowing for us to play back. But something that was even more mind-blowing is recently, as in a couple of weeks ago, when we went on this investigation a while back, around the time of Thanksgiving, I believe, because we're all into this Indians and Thanksgiving and the real meaning of Thanksgiving thing. I was playing an really old clip we had taken, our recording spirit box session, and I came across a clip that sounds almost identical, but at a slightly higher pitch than the one you just heard.
Yeah, and that was months ago.
Months and months before we got this recording. And it didn't make sense at the time, and we didn't think anything of it. But I was just going back and listening to some of our older data. It's nice to play stuff back and get a fresh perspective, and you tend to hear things you missed the first time around. And this was something we would have just skipped over because it didn't make any sense at the time. But I've taken the clip you just heard. We hear "believe" twice. Believe. And the clip I found that was probably at least 6 months older than that. It made no sense at the time, but it's kind of funny. And let me play that clip for you now.
You know what my shirt says?
I have no idea what that means, but it kind of brings up the idea of like parallel universes or
dimensions
or timelines.
Like they could see your future, your past.
Why was that there? It seems so similar. I mean, is it coincidence? Maybe, but boy, it really sounds a lot like that clip.
It's the same thing. So I don't.
Yeah, it's
I don't
so
understand. Right. How it could be the same exact thing from way months, like 6 months before.
Right, and it had no relevance to what we were talking about at the time.
None at all.
So it was just something we skipped over, and then I came across and I was like, oh my God, Chris, you got to hear this. It sounds just like our other clip.
It is so bizarre.
So this next clip is pretty interesting. That afternoon before we left, I was looking at a crystal, and we both often carry crystals, and wanted to take it with me, and I actually considered leaving it as an offering.
Right. When we go to places, we usually give offerings and be, respectful.
And it was odd because I don't usually leave a crystal. We also brought tobacco. And,
right. I love tobacco.
But I kept holding the thing in my hand, and I'm like, should I take this? I was curious. And I'm like, well, I'll just take it, and we'll see if I want to leave it or whatever. So we get there, and we go up to that big rock, and we notice other people have left offerings, and including another kind of crystal sitting at the base of a quartz crystal at the base of the rock. And then, of course, I remembered I had mine, and I said, with the spirit box running, I said it was nice that somebody had left a crystal. And the reply is, thank you, they're gifts.
Yes.
And then I said, I've brought a crystal of my own that I'm thinking about leaving. And it says, you can. And then it says something odd, like podcaster.
Yes, that's why we left it there. It said, you podcasters or something at the
right?
end. And it sounded funny, so we left that
We
part
left
at the
that
end
in there.
for you.
We don't know if that's random radio.
It
but
probably is, but it would just sounded funny.
Feel like the other verbiage seemed kind of to be talking to us, and
Absolutely.
we definitely felt a presence there. Like
yes,
more so than some other investigations. I felt like they were really right there, standing there. I could almost feel them talking to us. Here you go. It's just again looped, and the second time I've amplified the thank you, their gifts, and the you can part so you can hear it clearly. And here's that.
I really like the offering somebody left of a crystal at the base of this rock. Do you like that? I thought about leaving the crystal myself. I really like the offering somebody left of a crystal at the base of this rock. Do you like that? I thought about leaving the crystal myself.
This next clip is a little bit longer. I've now got the crystal in my left hand, and I'm getting ready to leave it as an offering. I'll play the clip, and then we break it down.
Well, in my left hand, if that's what you said.
That's cool.
Cool. I feel compelled to listen. And I had that feeling before I left, so I'm going to bury it under this rock. So nobody picks it up.
What was your Sachem's name?
So in the first part of this, you hear me talking about the amethyst crystal I had in my left hand that I left as an offering, and it immediately says
Traitor.
And then it says,
That's cool.
In my left hand, if that's what you said.
That's cool.
So for this next part, I'm talking about feeling compelled to leave the crystal I had brought, which was this amethyst, and I had this idea at home to bring it, and I liked it too. It's just a small one you might keep in your pocket, and it says redemption.
Yeah, redemption. It says it has music to it. Dun dun dun, and then all of a sudden it says redemption.
I feel compelled to listen. And I had that feeling before I left, so I'm going to bury it under this rock. So nobody picks it up.
I just thought that was really strange because redemption. Was I seeking redemption by leaving the offering? What did redemption mean to a Native American in a prayer town? I thought that was just kind of an interesting thing that popped up.
Mm-hmm. And then I asked after that what their sachem's name was, which sachem is chief. And we get I'm dead and Nipmuc twice.
2 times.
2 times.
Yeah, and right at the end, too, you'll hear that the speaker disconnect, and that is an odd thing, too, because my phone connects, by Bluetooth to this speaker that we use also for the spirit box, and it disconnected for some reason, which is really odd.
At the same time.
I'm right in front of it, so we thought that was weird, or it reconnected. Something happened to its connection. Here's this clip.
What was your sachem's name?
So in this next clip, I'm holding the amethyst in my left hand, but it's before I buried it, and I asked if they like it, and the response may
or may not be
scalp. We'll let you decide.
Do you like this amethyst that I'm holding?
It's an interesting clip because if in fact it is saying scalp, scalping was an occurrence that people mostly associate with the Native Americans doing to the white man, but in truth, it happened both ways.
On both sides.
There were scalpings, rapings, killings of children, real atrocities that occurred on both sides.
Right.
And we're not often taught that. This next clip, I'm asking if they can say something relevant. I said, I'm looking for some kind of confirmation. Can you please say something relevant?
And it says traitor. It comes back traitor.
Traitor. And that's pretty clear. And given that we're in a praying town and the people buried there were both considered traitors and probably considered the white man traitors, it's an interesting response.
Can you tell us something so that we know that you can hear us? Something relevant.
Traitor.
So I wanted to get back to that scalp thing that we mentioned a little bit earlier. And, I mentioned that scalping goes both ways and that we scalped the Indians and they scalped us. Although we were brought up to think that they always scalped us, right?
Right.
But in truth, there's still a little bit of controversy, even in today's news.
Right. The NFL, they have a team called the Washington Redskins.
Correct.
And most people think that, I guess you said they were being pulled.
Yeah, there was a poll, and most people are not offended by the
at all.
name Redskins, but they don't really understand it.
No, they think that it's because of the color of the Native American skin.
Which is not at all true.
It's very untrue. It's actually from them being, the Native Americans being scalped, and the white man using their scalps as currency.
And the bodies that were left over were called Redskins.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's something they didn't teach you while you were pledging allegiance and singing what?
This land is your land.
This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands. Yeah, it's such bullshit. Because try to tell that to a Native American, right? We took all that land. And we scalped them. And we called them Redskins. As we called the corpses Redskins.
Right. So that's what that term really means. And that's why it's very offensive, derogatory, and that's, I don't blame them for
why
using it.
It's a controversy, and they actually protest against these things, and most people put it off because we're all too damn busy.
Not only that, didn't we watch something in Germany about...
Oh, that's right, the Germans. The Germans have made note of their problems, and they teach the Holocaust and what happened there in their schools. So kids coming up, instead of just going, hey, Germany is number one, man, from the time they are born, they at least learn, like, we made some mistakes.
We screwed up, and this is what happened, and, don't ever do this again. Now, we should have something like that in the United States.
We should, but we don't,
Because we have blinders on.
We have blinders on. We don't accept that we could possibly be responsible for any atrocities in the world when the nation's founding was actually an atrocity. But we're not alone. Lots of countries have done this. And
Very true.
Yeah, it's just good. Public awareness message. That's all. It's not political. It's just public awareness.
Right.
In the last clip at the Native American Burial Ground in Grafton, Massachusetts, I did ask a question. I said, how do you feel now about the praying town? And the response is pretty clear. And we had to bleep this on the radio, right?
Yes, we did on our show.
But you guys are lucky and get to hear it unedited. And here that is.
How do you now feel about the praying town? How do you now feel about the praying town?
So in that clip, it's pretty clear that they said,
We were fucked.
we were fucked. And I looped it twice so you could hear we were fucked and at least make out the CK in that. And it is absolutely there.
It's crazy that it literally says that.
It's so appropriate and relevant.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, we had to include that. I hope you enjoyed it. Now we're going to go into a little bit more history. So stay with us. We're going to talk a little bit about King Phillips' War in Anawan's Rock.
Which they should teach that in school as well. Definitely King Philip's War.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the bloodiest Indian white man battle in history of the United States. And per capita, meaning for the population at the time, had the most deaths. So we're going to talk about that right now. Stick around. You're going to hear a little bit of history, and then we're going to get into some other very interesting Spirit Box clips. To further elaborate, the following came from, in large part, from King Philip's War, 1675 to 1676, an article on thoughtco.com by Kennedy Hickman, and History of King Philip's War on historyofmassachusetts.org by Rebecca Beatrice Brooks, as well as our own musings.
In the years following the Pilgrims' arrival in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1620, the Puritan population of New England eventually began to grow, in part from learning to survive from trial and error and from the knowledge given to them by the natives.
New colonies and towns were founded through the first several decades of settlement. The Puritans maintained an uneasy but largely peaceful relationship with the neighboring Wampanoag,
Narragansett,
Nipmuc,
Pequot,
and Mohegan tribes.
Treating each group separately, the Puritans bartered European products for Native American trade goods. As the Puritan colonies began to expand and their desire for trade goods lessened, the Native Americans began exchanging land for tools and weapons.
In 1662, Metacomet became sachem
Chief,
of the Wampanoag after the
very highly suspicious,
death of his brother Wamsutta, who had been imprisoned for 3 days in Plymouth and died shortly after release, causing tribal suspicion of the colonists.
it was thought
Though not proven,
that Wamsutta had been poisoned. Though distrustful of the Puritans, Metacomet continued to trade with them and attempted to maintain the peace.
adopting the English name,
Philip,
Metacomet's position became increasingly tenuous as the Puritan colonies continued to grow and the
Iroquois Confederation.
began encroaching from the west.
In 1671, the colonists became suspicious
So suspicious.
that Philip was planning an attack against them and summoned him into Taunton, Massachusetts, where they questioned him and demanded that he sign a peace treaty that required the Wampanoag to surrender their arms, which he did.
Unhappy with the Puritans' continued expansion,
In having his hand forced to sell off tracts of land,
he was again suspected of planning attacks against outlying Puritan villages. In late 1674, concerned about Metacomet's intentions, one of his advisors,
John Sassamon,
a Christian convert, informed the Puritans.
though Plymouth Governor Josiah Winslow took no action, he was stunned to learn that Sassamon had been
Murdered.
in February 1675. After finding Sassamon's body,
Trapped under ice. Come on, it's a Metallica song.
in Assawampset Pond, the Puritans received intelligence that he had been killed by 3 of Metacomet's men.
An investigation led to the arrest of 3 Wampanoags who were subsequently tried and convicted of murder. Hung on June 8th, their executions were viewed as an impingement on Wampanoag sovereignty by Metacomet.
On June 20th, 1675, a band of Wampanoag warriors entered the town of Swansea, Massachusetts.
The town where Kristen is from.
On Sunday, Sabbath, while all the inhabitants were at church, the warriors looted several homes in search of weapons and then set 2 homes on fire. Fire, fire! A handful of Swansea settlers fled the town in fear.
In response, on June 21st, Plymouth Governor Josiah Winslow ordered 200 men to be raised, and Massachusetts Bay Colony officials prepared to negotiate with the Nipmuc,
Narragansett,
Niantic, and King Philip of the Wampanoags.
On June 23rd, more houses were ransacked and burned in Swansea. Either that day or the following day,
Or some particular day.
a Wampanoag warrior was shot and wounded by a colonist named John Salisbury.
Later, Salisbury and 6 other settlers were ambushed and killed near Swansea Corner.
On June 24th, King Philip responded to the skirmish by ordering an attack on Swansea, which became the first official battle of King Philip's War.
After Sachem,
Chief
Metacom's death on August 12, 1676, he was replaced by trusted advisor Sachem Anawan, who would eventually be captured at, of course, what would be known as Anawan Rock in Rehoboth, Massachusetts, by Captain Benjamin Church.
Mr. Church promised Chief Anawan would not be killed if he surrendered. However, Chief Anawan was
Beheaded.
in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where his head would remain on display to the public for several years as it rotted and decayed.
This would mark the end somewhat of King Philip's War, although battling would continue through Rhode Island and other New England states unofficially. Anawan Rock is an enormous stone. Massive in size, it is 25 feet tall and 75 feet wide.
In the woods by Squannaconk Swamp in Rehoboth, Massachusetts.
Rehoboth is considered to be one of the most haunted of towns in Massachusetts and is located, of course, in the heart of the
Bridgewater Triangle. It is just off of Route 44, which is also known for its paranormal legend of the red-headed hitchhiker,
who is said to hitchhike and get into cars and just suddenly vanish.
When I was a child, my parents owned an antique shop right next door. For many years, I spent my time playing on and around Anawan Rock by myself, being that I was an only child. During those years, I felt that I was able to communicate with the spirits and entities at that giant rock.
Years later, I would find myself rehearsing an original rock band next to Kristen's parents' antique shop. Neither of us realized that we were crossing paths even back then, and would become a couple years later investigating that sacred spot.
So, on this particular day, in October of 2019, we went to Anawan Rock with my son, my 11-year-old son, Jacob, or Jake as he likes to be called. And we were on top of the rock, and Jake was playing and exploring towards the edge of it. You know, we were concerned, as any parent would be, and apparently so were the spirits.
So in this clip, you're going to hear Jacob called, as well as Jake, several times. And there's actually quite a bit in this clip. We're going to play it for you, and then we're going to talk about it. Here we go.
What's your name? Who's around us right now?
Jake,
Jake. Yes.
they know you're here. That's my little boy now. Jake. He needs to be careful.
So I'm sure you heard Jacob and then Jake several times, and this is actually the translation that we have.
It says, Jake, get up, stand up, get up, punish, act. And then the spirit says, he's fine. Here, stop it. Jake, Jake. Now the spirit goes, he's fine. And they start, stand up and grab her, meaning him grab me. Look, Jake, guard him.
And now I'm going to play it with a little bit of noise reduction so you can hear those words a little bit more articulately.
What's your name? Who's around us right now?
Jake,
Jake. Yes.
they know you're here.
That's my little boy now. Gee. He needs to be careful.
So I'm going to play this one more time with a little bit different noise reduction. This is the original clip I used on Bigfoot and the Bunny and on our live show. And it sounds a little bit underwater, but some of the words are more articulate. And you may hear something you didn't hear the first time. So here you go.
What's your name? Who's around us right now?
Jake.
Jake. Yes.
They know you're here. That's my little boy now. Jake.
So in this clip, I ask, who was captured here? And the answers are quite clear.
Who was captured here? Who was captured here?
So we got from this clip, whom must give back? The chief, Anawan. The traitor, you win.
Who was captured here? Who was captured here?
This next clip is pretty interesting. I asked what happened in this place, and the answer is exactly what happened in this place. It's politics.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the word is politics that you want to hear. Here you go.
What happened in this place? What happened in this place?
In this next clip, I ask, is this rock sacred? And eventually you'll hear a little female voice come out and say, sacred.
Is this rock sacred?
So that is interesting, and at the end of that, I looped the word sacred, so you hear it twice at the end.
And in the beginning of that clip, you can also hear very faintly, it says, life is sacred.
Is this rock sacred?
This next clip is really interesting.
And it's really quite funny. It starts off by saying, the neighbors think that I'm a ghost.
And then I ask, who lives here? And the reply is...
Ghosts.
Ghosts.
Who lives here? Who lives here?
So just now, I thought we might get into a little bit of the history. Anawan did not get beaten or fought down. He surrendered, basically, to Captain Benjamin Church and his crew. They came in at night, and oddly enough, they ended up staying the night because their encampment near the swamp behind Anawan Rock was so far back they didn't want to walk them out. And Anawan knew he was done. He was an older man at the time. And he basically gave up. So what happened was they had dinner together.
They did.
And Church and Anawan basically stayed up looking at each other, doing the stare down game, apparently.
All night long while the Wampanoags and the Benjamin Church's soldiers slept.
Right. And at one point, Anawan got up and he walked off into the darkness and he came back with a box. At this point, coming from the darkness, Church thought he might be retaliating, trying to escape.
Might have been armed or something, and right.
And grabbed one of Anawan's
children.
His youngest son, I believe, and held him up like a human shield. Like, how shitty is that, right?
Very. As it turns out, the box contained Metacomet's belt.
A belt that was 9 inches across and quite long. In fact, when Benjamin Church adorned it upon his shoulders, it reached his ankles.
It was called the Wampum Belt, and it had pictures of flowers, birds, and bears on it, which each told a story of the Wampanoags' history.
It had been handed down from Chief Metacomet to Chief Anawan upon his death. The box that Anawan gave to Benjamin Church contained the belt, among other treasures. In 1677, Metacomet's treasures were sent by the Plymouth Colony Governor Josiah Winslow, along with a detailed report of the conflict, to King James II, by the hand of Winslow's brother-in-law, Major Waldegrave Pelham of Essex. Not for 2 years did Winslow discover that his missive in the war spoils were never received by the king. Pelham had disappeared, owing his wife money, and was never heard from again, and the belt has gone missing. Some have rumored that it ended up in a museum in London, and that it was stolen actually out of that same museum.
And some theorize that it resides in Swansea, Massachusetts, in somebody's attic.
It is thought that if the belt was ever returned to the Wampanoag people, that the curse of the Bridgewater Triangle may be lifted. At this point, it may behoove us to tell you that Swansea is not on the official list of towns within the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah, it's on the cusp of it, and it's where King Phillips' War started.
If you were to walk from one apex, that being Freetown, to the other adjacent apex, that being Seekonk, you would cut through Swansea, but yet somehow it doesn't make the list. We feel that towns like Swansea, and certainly the cursed city of Fall River, should be officially listed as towns of the Bridgewater Triangle.
Absolutely.
So in this next clip, and in all these clips, we used a old school shack hack, an old Radio Shack radio where I clipped a capacitor that allowed me to hit the seek function and have it not stop on radio stations. However, it wasn't perfected, and it occasionally does stick. So this clip, you're going to hear me ask the question, you're going to hear some banter, and then you're going to hear what is like an old English
accent,
the same voice as it's spanning through the channels. And that's the part that makes up the clip, really.
Right.
Is this gentleman's offering.
This is an exceptional clip. It's Old English, like Chris said.
I asked who captured him, that being Chief Anawan, and this is the response that followed.
Who captured him? Chief Anawan.
This clip says, Anawan was caught here, braved it, Chose it. Not me wish.
The most interesting part of that is that it's the same voice as it's scanning the channels, especially at the end. And it says, he braved it. He chose it. Not me wish. And it's like that person was there and talking about the surrender.
Right.
Terribly interesting.
Who captured him? Chief Anawan.
This next clip is a clip that is close to Kristen, and I've slowed it down and I've used a little bit of noise reduction through the Audacity app to take out some of the static, so you can hear everything very clearly.
Right, it's slowed down, and you can hear me ask if you knew what my dad's name was, and it comes back as Thomas, and then all of a sudden it says his name is Tommy, and not too many people know that people called him Tommy Johnson. And this pulls at my heartstrings. Here it is.
Do you remember my dad's name from next door?
I think it's Thomas.
Yeah, I think it's Thomas. You're correct. Do you remember my dad's name from next door?
I think it's Thomas.
Yeah, I think it's Thomas. You're correct.
And that concludes the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
We love you guys and thank you so much for listening. You can catch us at www.darkhorseparanormal.com as well as
www.bigfootandthebunny.com.
Don't forget about Bigfoot and the Bunny because we have a live show on every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern at uprntalkradio.com. Stream live on YouTube by United Public Radio. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye. Welcome to the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr, and we've been down for a little while. I've been pretty busy. I had a lot going on, and tonight I've got Kristen Johnson with us. Hey.
And we're bringing sexy back, aren't we? We've got a show together called Bigfoot and the
Bunny.
And that's on the UPRN radio network. That's United Public Radio, which you can find at www.uprntalkradio.com. That's Joe Montaldo's network, who you may have heard of from Ancient Aliens. And we've been up to a lot of stuff. So we're going to try a new format tonight. We're going to shorten the podcast a little bit. I think The biggest complaint I've gotten about it is that it's very long. So we're going to try doing this in shorter spurts, if you will. So we've got lots of stuff. We've got all kinds of spirit box clips. We've got a great, EVP, right?
Yes, we have an awesome EVP.
Fantastic EVP about a place we've been investigating, and we want to share it with you guys. So sit back, relax. Let's get this mother rolling.
The itsy bitsy spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider climbed up the spout again.
So, Kristen and I have been very busy with our show, Bigfoot and the Bunny, which we'll tell you more about in a little bit, but we want to tell you about where we've been investigating. And it's something we call
The Undisclosed Location.
And the reason we call it the Undisclosed Location is because it quite literally has a sign in front of it that says no paranormal investigations. However,
We went out there. It took us over an hour to get out there and everything, and we didn't realize that the sign was there, and it was, during the middle of the day.
that's right. It was a daytime thing we were doing anyways. It wasn't at night, and I imagine they just don't really want people and teams coming there at night, and you can tell that kids party down there. There's a lot of broken bottles.
Broken glass.
It is a cemetery, if I didn't say that already. And, of course, everywhere we go, we're very respectful. And people do visit this place often. It is open to the public during the day. It has a rather notorious set of legends behind it, but I'm not going to get too into that because, it's kind of uncouth to be investigating something that the people actually say, please do not investigate. But,
Right, we didn't get permission.
however, we would have let it go and just kept our data and never said a thing.
Absolutely.
Except that it's turned into quite
A rabbit hole.
a rabbit hole, quite a puzzle where we're trying to fit the pieces
It's a
together.
puzzle.
And it gets deeper and deeper. Now that we've been a couple of times putting together this data, it seems like we have the souls of children trapped in there, and
Begging us to let them go. And
not to use the D word like some shows do, but it does seem a little demonic, like something outside of it, like keeping them trapped.
When we first walked in there, it was so serene. We took off our shoes. It was absolutely gorgeous. But it was very serene, and the only thing that I felt was there was something very evil that was surrounding the outside of the cemetery.
In particular, the left
corner. And I really couldn't put it together at the moment I was there, because we went back another time, which is for a different podcast.
Right. And we were drawn to that left corner, so it's kind of where we kind of started heading off pretty much at the front of the, quote unquote, no investigation. And you turned to me and you said, "Did you hear that?"
That's right.
And I said, "What, the boar?"
I said, "No." The woman laughing maniacally.
Right. You were talking about a woman laughing maniacally.
Yeah.
And I had literally just heard what a boar would sound like the snorting and like the ruffling in the woods, like further out past the cemetery in the woods, like like that, burrowing sound. And I just took that to be a boar, which, by the way, I found out we don't have boars in the state.
They're not indigenous to our state.
They're not indigenous to our state. Nope. And you had heard a woman laughing maniacally.
I did, and I heard rustling in the trees and the branches and everything, and at the same time, it was really bizarre. And that was before we started recording.
Right.
So that was our first paranormal.
You guys have to excuse me. I'm getting over my 15th cold of the season. It seems like I've been sick for weeks, but
We wonder if it's something that has to do with this too.
Oh yeah, it's trying to kill me.
You're right.
I'm getting too close to the truth. Yeah, they're worse than the government.
Oh, that was awesome.
So.
Yeah, don't get me started on that government.
Right? And there is this kind of, I don't know, secret squirrel mystery thing that's going on here. There are certain legends, a set of them based around this particular location.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're trying not to be uncool. We do not want to drive people there.
Not at all. We don't recommend you even go there.
But we do feel like it's a little scary, and we don't know if, for instance, that, maybe certain cults still occupy this place and,
right.
commit certain practices. Now, I mean, if you know us and you've been following the Dark Horse Paranormal podcast, like I have an occult background, and, I'm very open to the idea of cults and rituals and such things. But this is actually a little spooky because there do seem to be
trapped souls. They're children. There's other souls there that keep saying, help me. There's something, and I feel it, some kind of evil presence.
Something nefarious.
Yes, around the entire cemetery that's keeping them in. And I can feel it, that it's whatever it is, it's in the woods.
It does seem rather evil, and they do seem rather trapped. And I think tonight's episode, we're going to center around the clips we've got of one certain child's soul, and his name is Toby.
Poor Toby.
And we actually were shaken up by some of these clips that we got.
We've been there twice, and we've got the same data twice the whole time.
Which is to say, the first time we went, we felt like we were communicating with the Toby, and we asked Toby, "How old are you?" First, Kristen asked, and the reply came back. I think twice. It says 7.
7.
It's 7.
3 times he says 7.
Then I said, "Toby, how old are you?" in the same clip, because we didn't hear it at the time. The spirit box is running; it's just going a million miles an hour, and you miss stuff, and you play it back, and you go, "Whoa!" But I thought I would ask the same question, because we do that. We parrot questions sometimes as kind of a technique,
right?
For validation. And sure as
Enough.
shit, there it is. 7. It comes back again.
7,
more
7.
Than,
he says,
like the other times. So that happened, and then we went back
and asked again to make sure for validation. The second time, and the same question. And we asked Toby, "How old are you?" And he said 7. Chris asked, "How old are you, Toby?" 7. I mean,
there it was. Does it get better than that? So that kind of set up the next clip we're going to play for you guys. So we're going to do that right now. Here it comes.
Toby, how old are you?
How old are you?
So there you hear it. You hear Toby's all around, and it'd probably be a good idea to wear headphones to hear that even more clearly. But what I'm going to do for you right now is slow it down by, say, 7%. All right, there's no effects on this. This is raw audio. This is just how it is, but I'm going to slow the audio down. It's going to lower the pitch a little bit by 7%, just so you can hear it a little bit more clearly. I find the 7% is nice. It helps make out some of the little bits and pieces that we get with this ITC work. Especially with the spirit box scanning on a fast rate.
Really fast. Flips.
Yeah, and you get little bits. And they go by so fast, you don't notice it in real time. That, 90% of the time you miss it in real time. But, all right, here it is, slowed down by 7%.
Toby, how old are you?
How old are you?
So about a month later, we returned to the
Undisclosed Location.
And we made a couple of new friends that were also walking around and trying to more or less day investigate like we were.
Courtney and Justine.
Yep, and they sat in for a spirit box session that we did. And I actually posted the entire Spirit Box session up on our SoundCloud, which if you go to soundcloud.com and search for Dark Horse Paranormal, you'll find it. And there's all sorts of clips on there from the podcast, from our Bigfoot and the Bunny show, and some things that aren't on either. So do check that out. But at some point in this session, I asked Toby, how old are you? And this is what we got.
Toby, can you tell us how old you are again? 7.
Twice.
Dear.
Now we're going to slow it down by 7% for you.
Toby, can you tell us how old you are? Again?
Twice.
Dear.
Now, when you actually listen to that last clip, Toby says he's 7 4 times.
4 times.
At first, we thought it was only 2, but
I actually only heard it once in real time, but it was 4 times when we played it back. The next clip we're going to do is a bit longer, and is pretty much all the communications we had with Toby during that particular Spirit Box session with Courtney and Justine.
right.
Again, is posted out on SoundCloud. What I did a little differently with this clip is I used a tool called noise reduction. And what I did is I sampled the noise of the static and removed it. And what that did is it opened up some of the other things we couldn't hear.
Right.
And much to our surprise, there was a lot of things there.
Yeah, and it had a lot to do with Toby.
Yeah, we actually hear Toby whimpering and
Crying.
This is a very sad clip.
It's heart-wrenching.
You'll hear us ask the question again, how old are you? And there's more to it. And you're going to hear him say, "Where's Mom?" which is really just awful. And he's basically sobbing. When
Yes.
I start the clip, you'll hear him crying
Yes, he's sobbing. Yeah.
in the background. And that's this next clip. So check this out.
Toby, are you here?
Toby, can you tell us how old you are? Again? Seven.
Twice.
Dear. I didn't hear the first one.
We did. Yeah. Toby, what's your last name?
Why are you guys here? So there's leave. Leave. It did it again.
That's what I heard.
It's 2 leaves. Does that mean you're leaving or we should leave? Scared. You're scared to leave.
Scared to leave.
Why are you scared to leave?
So that just blew our minds. I couldn't even believe it. I remember I was at work and you were telling me about it.
Yeah, I was going through it, and I couldn't believe I could hear him say, "Where's Mom?" and he's sobbing through the whole clip, and I messaged Chris at work, and I said, you gotta listen to this, but don't listen to it now because I'm crying, and you're gonna cry too if you hear it.
I don't know if I outright cried, but I was definitely choked up, and I really feel for this Toby because, it just made everything so much more real for us.
Yes, definitely.
I'm so glad I learned how to do the noise reduction, and we tried it on this because we've actually gone back now in some of our other clips and found some other things we didn't hear before.
Right.
So that's worked out pretty well. And, certainly this is a really sad case of a trapped soul who is scared to leave.
Yep.
That's what they're saying at the end of that.
Right.
But the most climatic moment, and I'll play it again, was...
Where's Mom? So yes, that was very heart-wrenching to us, and I'm sure to you listeners as well. There's one thing about this undisclosed location that we've just been obsessed with it, and back
Going
and
down
forth
rabbit holes after rabbit hole, and it became a day in, day out thing.
Right. And it got to be so much where we began to channel it in our houses.
Right. We could channel with the spirit box sessions in your house and in my house.
Right.
And in the next clip, to set it up a little bit or give you some background, we're full on rabbit holing at this point, and we're able to do these sessions. And Kristen isn't even here. We did a session at my house. She calls me on the phone.
Over
I've got
the
her
phone.
on speakerphone.
Yep.
And we're so close to this. We just simply started asking questions about Toby. Now, I don't know that we're talking to the entity that we feel resides in the
Undisclosed location, yes.
right, or if we're just hearing spirits, which I tend to think, telling us about it. But because we're so close to it, we're actually able to get the legit answers. During this time frame, and things have changed a little bit because we had to make it change.
Yes.
We were able to get into what we're going to call the AM band, or the evil AM band, that we're going to talk about probably in the next podcast.
Yes.
But there'll be more. Yeah, we'll explain this a little bit better. But for now, suffice to say, we could basically get stuff about Toby at our houses and more or less talk to some of the entities in the location. I think this is spirits talking to us. And
again, to reiterate, this is over the phone now.
Right. And we're not at the place. So we're at my house. Kristen's called me on the phone.
I'm at my house. Yep.
And we do a session. And this is a clip from that.
How did Toby die?
Who killed Toby? Fun.
Why? Why was Toby killed?
So there's an awful lot of information in that little bit of clip, right, Chris?
Yes, there is.
While we haven't decided on every word, there are so many words in just a few seconds. There's a lot we definitely agree on, and I'm sure you as a listener were able to pick up. Certainly, when Kristen asked, how did Toby die? Mm-hmm. It comes back and says, dead. He's dead. In tree. He's dead. Toby. Toby is dead. And you just hear the spirit saying, dead, 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 over. And I'm sure you heard that. Then I asked, who killed Toby? And then we hear, Toby, blackfish and hung. Toby was hung. Blackfish. And I don't know what it is with the blackfish.
So we looked up blackfish.
Correct.
And you found it to be what, in
the 1680s, 1690s, the term blackfish came about in New England for saltwater fish, which is tautog and black sea bass. It could be an expression for that. That's the origins of that term. But we've wondered if maybe, back then in those days, if it meant something else, like perhaps gutting a fish, or to say blackfished, maybe that was something different, some kind of terminology that we don't use now.
Right, yeah.
But we clearly hear blackfish and hung, and then you hear blackfish again. Toby was hung. There was also, I think, when you first asked, how did Toby die? At the end of that, it also said something like, it goes, dead, dead, in a tree, he's dead. Toby is dead. And then I hear in it, shot, double shot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what happened to this kid?
This poor kid. I don't know. All I know is
He's dead.
Yeah.
That's what we know.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Feels
And,
so
I
bad.
shouldn't laugh about after, that previous clip, but, good God, I've never gotten responses like this. This is ridiculous. Then we asked...
I asked, why was Toby killed?
Oh, right. All right.
And what we think happened was we think that a spirit is basically speaking to us, but we went too fast with our questions. And we think that maybe it was telling us, when I first asked, how did Toby die? We're maybe like after Chris had said, who killed Toby? That's what they were, telling us.
There was more of a delay, which is
Yeah.
common when you're trying to get EVPs. You want to wait 30 seconds for the reply before you ask another question. And we might have been moving a little too quick.
And like Chris said, there's so much information in these clips that they're,
Just a few
stuff that they give
seconds.
us that we should have waited at least a few minutes,
Right.
We know
right.
better now.
And but at the end of that clip, it sounds to me like the spirits are talking about you.
Yes.
Saying you're Kristen upset home. It mentions your son's name.
Yes,
Jake.
twice. Jacob, Jake.
And it says because, happy son Jake, 7 or 11. And I think that's referring to your maternal instincts because you have an 11-year-old and you're a mom. And, I think they just know that you're upset about the Toby thing on a level that is pretty deep, and obviously I'm upset too. And I have a son and a daughter, so a bit older, but I'm upset, but you have those maternal instincts. And I think they recognize that. And that's what they're talking about at the end of that. So I'm going to play it again. I want the listener to me to, take in what we just said and
Right.
what we think it says and hear this one more time.
How did Toby die?
Who killed Toby? Son.
Why? Why was Toby killed?
So an interesting thing happened, and we were able to catch an EVP on our first trip to...
The undisclosed location.
That's right. And this is a pretty good story, and one of the more paranormal things that actually has happened to me, and you, I believe, as well.
Me as well, yes.
We were, we had been recording for a while and doing some things and walking around, and we were walking toward the outer wall. Kristen had the Tascam DR5 with a headset plugged in.
A noise-canceling headset.
Correct.
Yes.
So basically everything you were hearing was through the recorder.
Now, it's a small cemetery, so we left the spirit box and a recorder in the middle of it as we walked down.
That's right. There's a certain area there we call the middle that, has some legends attached to it as well. But we were walking toward the outer wall together, and she's listening to all the sounds of the woods and different things through her headset, and I'm walking with her, and we're asking questions. And very suddenly we heard, what?
Hello.
Hello. We heard this
A
somebody
huge
yell,
echo.
hello, like very loudly, and it scared the crap out of me enough that I jumped up on the wall of the outer wall and looked, because it seemed to come from the gates being a key word, like there was somebody outside maybe calling us out.
Right, to see if we were there, if somebody was there, right.
Exactly. And I thought for sure there was, and you jumped, and we both jumped at the same time. We both heard it. There was nobody there.
Nope.
Nope, not a soul. And the really weird...
See, when you jump on the wall, you could see over the gate.
I could see at the gates. And the really weird part was that the hello didn't make any of the recordings.
No, not at all.
No. So I then jumped off the wall, and I jumped onto there was a rock like that had fallen off the wall. Jumped onto that, and it made a click sound. It made you jump again.
Yes,
because you heard it very loudly through the DR5. It sounded like huge, and it just kind of I jumped on this rock and made a click sound, and then in that same moment we caught this EVP.
Awesome EVP.
Right. And what you're going to hear is, it sounds like maybe an early American gentleman.
It's Old English, yes.
Seems like an Old English sound, as I would expect it to sound, I guess.
Sure.
And he says, "Rock 'twas old."
What that thing is.
This scared the shit out of me. So that was a great EVP.
Yes, it was. That was so cool.
I mean, you can literally hear his old English accent, since this is one of the oldest burial grounds or cemeteries.
Certainly in the area. I think the first burial in there was one of the Potter family members. Mm-hmm. Ooh, hint, hint, wink, wink. And back in 1740. And there are a few different families buried in there. Mm-hmm. But, let's hear that again. I'm going to slow it down, maybe?
Yes, let's slow it down.
In case you missed it the first time. Rock 'twas old. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. This has been the third episode of the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast, and you can find us on Facebook at Dark Horse Paranormal if you search for that, as well as
Bigfoot and the Bunny.
That's right, Bigfoot and the Bunny. And Bigfoot and the Bunny is live every week on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on www.uprntalkradio.com, or more easily seen where you can actually see us. It's live streamed on YouTube by United Public Radio. So if you go out and search YouTube for United Public Radio, you'll find a live stream that is steady every night. And
Joe Montaldo's network.
Yes.
And it's 107.7 FM, New Orleans.
That's right. In New Orleans, you can hear us live on the radio, on FM radio, which is pretty cool, right, Chris?
Yes, it is.
I like that. And, we've got that. And you can find us on Facebook again at Dark Horse Paranormal and Bigfoot and the Bunny. You can find us on Instagram.
And on Twitter.
At those same names. So if you search for Bigfoot and the Bunny or Dark Horse Paranormal on any of those social media outlets, you will find us. So come, like, subscribe, please do, wherever you're listening to this on, whether it be iTunes or, Google Podcasts or Spotify or whatever it is. Give it a like and subscribe, just so we know. And you can keep up with us, because we're going to definitely release a lot more episodes of this.
Absolutely.
In this shorter format, coming up soon.
Come down the rabbit hole with us.
Join us in the rabbit hole. So we appreciate it. My name's Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson. Thank you for listening.
Have a good day. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. Welcome to the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. This is episode number 4, and I am Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
And we have one hell of an episode tonight, don't we, Kristen?
Yes, we do. We're talking about the Evil AM Band.
And what the AM Band is about was when we went to a certain place.
The Undisclosed Location.
The Undisclosed Location, which I will not tell you about, being in central Massachusetts in a well-known haunted area. But They have a sign out front that says no paranormal investigation. So
This is why we call it
people
that.
there, and we really don't want to send people there, but we've talked about that other places, right?
Right. Like Bigfoot and the Bunny?
That's right. Bigfoot and the Bunny, which is on every Tuesday night.
At 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. And check us out, www.uprntalkradio.com, or catch us live streamed and be able to see us on YouTube at United Public Radio. United Public Radio, which is Joe Montalo's network.
That's right, from Ancient Aliens.
Is streamed every day on YouTube. All you need to do is search for United Public Radio on YouTube, and you'll find the live stream. We are also live on the air
at 107.7 FM New Orleans.
That's right. If you're in the New Orleans area, you can catch us
every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
9 p.m. Eastern.
That's right. Anyways, step back, relax, and let's get this mother rolling. We don't practice Santeria, but we have a crystal ball. Went to the Houghton Mausoleum and we heard it all.
Wait, what?
So, getting back to this evil AM band. So, this is something we came across. We went to the Undisclosed Location, as mentioned earlier.
Right, is a cemetery. We're going to put it out as that.
Yeah, it is a cemetery, and it might be hosted by a certain religious group.
Yes,
and it might be in Central Mass.
Maybe Quakers or something.
It might even have the name Gates in it, but...
Ooh. That gives you something to think about from our last podcast, where I sing the itsy bitsy.
Something. But, however...
We got this one name from the Undisclosed Location, this cemetery.
That's right. Her name was Abigail
Houghton.
And we found out there was an Abigail Houghton actually buried in this cemetery.
But it's really bizarre because there are no stones with the name Houghton on it.
Correct.
So if you go to the website, www.findagrave.com,
you can look this stuff up.
And come to find out, there was an Abigail Houghton, but they didn't use her maiden name.
Correct.
So that led us
down another rabbit hole.
On a huge rabbit hole.
That's right.
So
where did we go then?
After we looked this up, we found out that there was this Houghton Mausoleum in Hope Cemetery,
which is in Worcester, Massachusetts, not too far
I was
from
just gonna say that.
What?
Slightly undisclosed location
undisclosed location. And we went there. And, looking up the Houghtons, we also found out there is a big legend about the Houghton Mansion, which is in a different part of Massachusetts, but not too far away.
But this mausoleum has been broken into at Hope Cemetery 3 times. The last time, this guy said that he was a high priest of Santeria.
Mm-hmm. And he wanted the bones, right? He stole the bones.
He stole bones.
Including adults and children?
Yes.
Yes, and he was using them in rituals, apparently. And someone ratted him out.
Yeah, you got caught.
The curse upon that person.
Mm-hmm. Another podcast altogether.
Totally. However, we found this intriguing enough to make our way over to Hope Cemetery and check out the Houghton Mausoleum, which we have pictures of on our Facebook website, Bigfoot and the Bunny and Dark Horse Paranormal. Mm-hmm. Also, we're on Instagram, and you can see those pictures as well.
Oh, and we tweet now, so we're on Twitter.
That's right. We are twitting.
We're twitting. We are twitting.
However, we went there, and that was our next stop after the first visit to the
Undisclosed Location.
Shh.
Slightly now.
It's very slightly undisclosed. And when we started off using FM band with our S box, our spirit box.
We have the S box, and we also we filmed it like we film everything else. We we
have film of this.
We video. everything we do.
And we got a bunch of stuff on there.
It
and
was
of course
way too much stuff.
Missed
So
it. So we were like, we don't know what's going on. And we switched over to the AM band.
Yeah, because it was just so chatty. And we were like, we just must be picking up something, else in radio stations. And
kind of thing that would come to return. But
Here
anyways, long story short, we switched over to the evil AM band. Mm-hmm. And what did we hear?
Speak.
Yep, we heard.
Oh, no, you're doing the sound effects.
Speaks. And that's
So,
all we got.
We
for
were
like 10
so
minutes.
confused. And then it would go, it speaks woods.
So this is the first track that we recorded, or a little bit of it, from the Houghton Mausoleum.
Do you have a message for us?
Are you able to tell us?
Who's inside here?
So we go back to the slightly undisclosed location with the gates.
Yeah. An itsy bitsy thing. Thingamajigga.
And we set up on the back wall, which actually that's where we got our first Class A EVP from. Yes, Rocked Was Old.
Rocked Was Old. And the old, seemingly old American language. Yep.
Yes,
very good. Very cool. But this is great. We again started on the FM band, and we're getting all kinds of stuff, and it was so much we didn't know it was really happening. And upon listening back, of course, there was...
Of course, like every time else.
Lots of things. There's a repeating name you'll hear here at the end of it, Jacob. Mm-hmm. And when we're going to switch to the AM band, it stops on an FM station.
Yes.
And it has the most curious little bit of audio. So listen to that and what it actually says, because we can't figure out what this could have possibly come from. And
it's just so bizarre. And there's another podcast in between this after. We keep seeing feathers.
Right. We'll have to talk about the feathers in another podcast. The feathers keep making an appearance for some reason in our lives, which ties in with that little bit of audio.
That's right.
Right.
That's where it came from.
Mm-hmm. Seemingly. Oddly enough. And you're going to hear us freak out a little bit. I'm a little shocked when it starts doing it again.
And I'm freaking out quite a bit.
So much so, I've actually bleeped one of these words.
Yes.
Is it really can just be chatter?
Who's around me? How to delete.
With Angel. Work it out.
Scanning AM.
This is what we did with the Houghtons, correct? Can you imagine if we get the same stuff?
I just heard something go... If you were trying to speak through us before, through this box, I changed it slightly. Please try again. We'd love to talk to you. It'll help us communicate. We want to know if you have a message for us. No, it's not. What I did here, weird. We turn it up a little bit. It sounds loud. Oh my god, it is.
It's fucking saying the same thing. It's saying the same thing.
I just heard it say speak.
It's saying the same thing.
So we were definitely a little freaked out by that. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, we're in a different location. There's got to be a way to debunk this. So I'm looking at the dial to see where, we're getting hit and speaks. And I do notice that there are parts of the dial that, did have radio stations and audio. And I'm thinking, all right, well, that must be what's doing it. And it's just this way the radio works and it sounds that way. And I tried reversing the direction of the sweep and seemed to have no bearing. And then I slowed it down. And this for sure had no bearing, except we got a few more words, but not necessarily where we should have. So listen in. The little quick sentence you hear there before the speak is saying in the woods. Here you go.
What is your name?
Oh, jeez.
Speak. Let's go in the other direction. And a note. Stations. You got words on. Smell this. A little slower. What is your name?
So we were really shocked about that.
Blown away. That last speak just had us silent, just staring at it going,
yeah,
oh my God.
There's no way.
We didn't say anything for like 5 seconds.
I can't believe it just said that. Oh my God.
Wow. Slow down. Speak.
It was creepy as heck.
Yeah.
It really
definitely was creepy. We took all this home. We had a really another session that was really good, and some of that is in the last podcast about Toby on the same day, and we had all this like really, really cool data to go home and check out, and we were all excited, and we were like, yeah, we'll get some Coronas, we're gonna have a good time,
yeah,
we're gonna listen to our stuff. And what happened, Chris?
Well, we both busted open a Corona, and we're sitting there, and we're listening to this darn AM band.
Mm-hmm.
And
just the AM band.
Just the AM band alone. And because we were so intrigued by this and creeped out, but we had to listen to it. And I don't even think I finished half a Corona, and I got extremely ill.
We both did.
Physically and mentally ill.
Yep.
Chris got really ill.
Yep. I actually ended up in the bathroom, and I want to get the detail there, but yeah, I was not feeling well at all.
And
just like suddenly too, I was like fine.
Yeah,
like, we were excited.
Yeah,
like this is gonna be great. And like after a few minutes of listening to this AM band stuff, it was like we channeled it.
Weird, yeah.
I don't know. We didn't mean to.
Right.
But we both got sick.
I shut down, like I was in the fetal position and just wanted to, I felt so gross and depressed. And like Chris said, he got really sick.
Yep. So, yeah, that was it for the Coronas and the good time. And
the entire night. It was just blown.
We were just done. Like, we went to bed early. We were like, yeah, we both felt horrible. So that was the data review that night. No, I think it was the next day we came back to your house.
Yes, we came back to my house, and I said, Chris, just for the hell of it, we went out and we sat on my front porch, and I said, just for the hell of it, put on the AM band. I want to hear, if we get anything like this,
Yep. And
sure
as heck.
Yes.
Sure as heckany. It started again. We could hear the It Speaks. Well, it showed us that it either came with us or we can channel it.
We can actually channel it. I think it's we channel it.
And we have more clips coming up where we are in disclosable locations. We did them from our houses.
Yes, we did.
And actually, the next set of clips is clips that we did at my house.
Right. We were having a bit of an argument.
We were having a lover's quarrel. And oddly enough, the voice starts to say things like, it speaks anger.
And then it started saying, let it speak anger, anger.
And then we also start hearing a couple other voices in there, one of which we identify as Frank Houghton, who we're going to be talking about most likely in the next podcast, because we have lots of clips of him, and also the cartoon villain.
The cartoon villain voice is funny.
He says things like freaky.
And spooky. And
creepy.
Creepy.
And yeah, so take a listen. He's in this one now.
Are Toby and Abby buried in there with outside the grounds?
Or inside, in that general area.
The next clip is Let It Speak Anger, Anger, and we've played it twice for you.
So the second time, I slowed that down a little bit so you could hear it more articulately. This next clip is really interesting. You're going to hear the Let It Speak Anger, but we actually get another voice in here, and this is the voice we attribute to
Frank Houghton.
And he himself says, let it speak. Then he says what I think is piss off.
But it sounds like it's in an old English accent.
Right, and then he says a couple other things, and it may be that he says piss off like 3 times, but we're not 100% sure. Have a listen. Here it is.
Is this really Frank? Who are we speaking to? Frank, or whoever, tell us your story so we can find you.
So if you notice, the creepy voice that says it speaks and it speaks anger actually says it speaks Frank after we heard from Frank, which is another reason why we think that is, in fact, the Frank Houghton.
Right. A week later, we came back to my house.
Yes, we did.
And we decided to do a session here as well on the AM band. And literally, I don't know if it's calling us hybrids.
Or making some reference to something else that's a hybrid. It made us, start to think, are we talking to an alien?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, oh my God.
This is an alien, a demon. Are demons and aliens the same thing?
We have no idea.
It's just some kind of entity. We kind of believe this voice to be some non-human entity or possibly part of Frank's psyche. We aren't sure yet.
We aren't sure, yes.
So stay tuned for more on Frank, but
this is going to be our next clip is going to be hybrids, and this is from my house.
You guys are the chaotic energy that's going on to let us help you speak. How do we fix it?
So that was actually two different clips we did at the Wonderful Bunny's house, a.k.a. Kristen. And in both those clips, we can hear the hybrids word. And as we mentioned, we're not sure if it's telling us we're hybrids or what. But the second clip kind of ends with, we like to think forgive, but it may be something more unpleasant.
Yeah, I think it's more like F you, but...
Yeah. But you can rewind and listen to that if you want a little bit more closely. The next clip, as it says... It
speaks English speak.
Right, which gives us even more questions. Now it's saying English speak, and what does that mean? It's almost like it doesn't have a good grasp of vocabulary.
Right, or it's ancient dialect. I don't know. It's ancient.
Yeah. We actually got ancient Incan demon in one of these things.
We did.
Back on the spirit box too. So I don't know. We don't have all the answers, but we're trying to put together the story.
It's a whole puzzle. It's a huge puzzle.
It's a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Here is It Speaks English Speak. In this next clip, the voice tells us it speaks ravens
and lament,
which is pretty powerful when you stop and think about that. Lament, of course, being a intense sorrow, an intense loss, and ravens, through many cultures, are generally a harbinger of death.
Right.
I know in Germanic cultures they were considered the ghosts of the murdered, and I believe the Swedish said they were the souls of murdered people without Christian burials. And certainly this goes back through the Irish cultures and Greek and even Native American. Most often they are thought of as bad luck. So here is
Ravens and Lament.
And that's going to do it for another episode of the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I've been your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
And you can check us out on our other show, Bigfoot and the Bunny, which is live. And you can see it live Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can hear us on www.uprntalkradio.com. We're also streamed live on YouTube by United Public Radio. If you search YouTube for United Public Radio, look for their live stream Tuesday nights at 9. That is us. And we're also on the air where?
107.7 FM, New Orleans.
That's right, baby. And we hope to see you soon. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.